Welcome, everyone, to People on Dating. I'm your host, Will Morales. And for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, this podcast is about the ups and downs of dating and how to navigate through it. Today, my guest is Dr. Shila Patel. Shila Patel was born in Kenya, went to Zambia, where she completed high school. Next, to the United Kingdom to pursue higher education. After completing her medical school in St. Andrews, Scotland, and Manchester, England, she came to live in America at the age of 26 years. After completing her 5-year training in adult and child psychiatry in Augusta, Georgia, she had a private practice in Valdosta, Georgia. Did I pronounce that right?
Valdosta.
Valdosta, Georgia. She was a licensed practicing psychiatrist for over 25 years, working with kids and adults. She chose to retire at the age of 51 years old. You still got like another 50 years in you. What's the matter?
That's why I'm doing these shows so I can keep giving advice and information.
Well, first of all, Dr. Sheila, thank you so much for being on People on Dating. How are you?
I'm doing good, and thank you for inviting me, William, for
No,
your
no,
show.
it's my pleasure. So tell us a little bit about your journey. You were born in Kenya. You got your medical school in St. Andrews, Scotland, and Manchester, England. Then you went to America. I mean, you've been all over. What was that
Well,
aha moment for you?
live my life on 3 continents, which is great. My
Yeah.
father, well, the British were ruling India at the time when my parents were born.
Okay.
So they were British citizens. And so we could move over to a British colony in Africa. And so that's where my parents decided to move instead of fighting with 1 billion people in India to try and get ahead. They decided to go to a British colony, and it worked out. But dad always had ambitions of doing better and better and providing better for his family. And so when he moved from Kenya, he was with the Ministry of Finance as he was an accountant in Zambia. And so
Okay.
we finished high school there. And then the university degrees in Africa are not really recognized all over the world. So since we were British subjects, we decided to go to England and pursue the higher education. But dad always wanted to come to America because, of course, let's put it this way, it is a land of opportunity. You
Yeah.
work very hard, you can get ahead in life. And that's what dad did. So by the time I was halfway through medical school, they had already moved over to America. And so when I finished high school and got myself registered as a physician in England, I decided to move over here and went through residency and private practice. And then I don't have children. And so I decided to hang up the shingle after 25 years. Working with psychiatric patients and mental health can be pretty draining because a lot of things that you're hearing are negative stuff and you're
Mhm.
dealing with negative emotions. And so it's a very draining profession. And so I decided that maybe I've had enough. I had enough of a financial background. And so I decided to just kind of settle down and travel and pursue things that I haven't been able to in the 25 years I was practicing. Being the only real child psychiatrist and only female psychiatrist, I was extremely busy from word get go. And so my practice was very busy. And so we decided to settle in Florida because my parents were getting older. And
Mhm.
so got closer to take care of them. Well, then the pandemic hit, and so the traveling stopped, and I am surrounded by brainiacs here in Cape Canaveral. They're all astronauts or engineers or NASA or space. And so they all said, you have so much experience in psychiatry, so why don't you write some books?
Mhm.
And so, but lo and behold, I decided to write 3 books
Yeah.
and mainly dealing with relationships and understanding the different emotions that go into mental health. And that was the Us Unhinged. And then the US Unhinged came from all the social problems we were having because there was so much school shootings going on. There was the Me Too movement. So just trying to understand a lot of the social events that were going on in America that brought about the US Unhinged. And then the US Fractured followed with January 6th. I
Yeah.
was, here we are 5 years yesterday. And just like a lot of people, my jaw just dropped. I'm an immigrant of 40 plus years. And I was horrified as to this was not the country that I came to 40 years ago. And I just put the book out in 6 months, just trying to make some sense of what's happening. Plus, I wanted to make sense of what had happened during the pandemic and after the pandemic, and why there has been such an upsurge in mental health. And of course, it affects all sorts of relationships, whether it's with yourself, with your family, with your siblings, with your loved one, falling in love, how to maintain those relationships. And right now, a lot of people are asking me to talk about the anger and the division and the frustration that's going on in the country. And again, it relates to exactly the topic that you're talking about. It's all about relationships. How do we navigate through the tough times?
Yeah, and today's a good topic. It's about mental health and relationships. And
Right.
Dr. Sheila, the one of the things like for me, and I started talking more about myself a little bit more, this is my new season,
Right.
season number 3,
Right.
where I grew up with my grandparents. I didn't grow up with
Right.
my mother and father and everything. So it's amazing, and you know this better than anyone, where something from childhood could just affect
Yes.
you 20,
Yes.
30 years later. I always was good with relationships in terms of people, hanging out, making friends and all that. But when it
Right.
came to one-on-one with a woman, I always shied away and everything. It took a little longer, maybe to my late 30s, early 40s, to figure out why. Once I figured out why, I'm like, oh my God, this was holding me up. This was bothering me. I never talked about it, whatever. And I talked to my mother. Everything was squashed, thankfully,
Right.
But Dr. Sheila, what I'm seeing now, even in today's modern dating, uh, where and the modern dating of TikTok now and Instagram that's out there, uh, I've seen more and more women posting about breakups, their heartbreaks, and all that. Some of them have they're crying. Some of them upset. Some of them say all men are dogs and all that. Is the dating scene that you might know about or hear about just? It seems like it's a battle of sexes now. It's like it seems like men and women are competing with each other.
Well, that's what I wrote a lot about in my book because, one of the things that has happened is that women have had to fight through a lot of stigma, a lot of patriarchal societies. And so they've had to work very hard to get up to the level that they're at. And now the focus is on trying to encourage women and get them into the positions, or let's face it, even a simple thing as equal pay. They've had to
Right.
fight with for the same jobs and everything else.
Mhm.
The reason why I really wrote about the Me Too movement was because I didn't want people just to think, hey, another woman jumping on the bandwagon. I
Right.
wanted them to understand the consequences of it. The men that have read my books have felt like they've understood a lot more about and they appreciated what I had to say because it's from the male perspective and the female perspective. And I think that women maybe have gone too much as far as feeling like they don't need men. And the men have gone to the place where they feel like, oh, they were at the top of the pyramid and now they're having to share that space with women. And so now their feelings a little slighted. And even though everybody's looking for love and relationships, what's amazing is that 30% of adults cannot find a spouse or cannot find somebody to love or are not in a relationship. And there are lots of reasons for that too. I
Right.
mean, we can go into a lot of reasons for why men are still single. But you're right that, there is a lot of friction between males and females. And how do you navigate that? And what is your end game? And how are you going to reconnect and become a family, because that's what the part missing. And sometimes when you hear politicians talking about, well, women need to be at home and bare feet and pregnant,
Mhm.
that's not helping the cause, because then it just makes women even more feisty to go the other way.
Right. I read a study that I want to talk about in a future episode. I think J.P. Morgan did it. Was supposed to be by the year 2030, about 35 to 40, 45% of women between the ages of, I think it was 25 to 40 will be single and childless. And I'm like, Jesus, I don't know if I don't personally, I don't believe that stat, but
Mhm.
I mean, if J.P. Morgan did it, and people are talking about it, and because I think and you hit it on early. Some women are saying, "Oh, we don't need a man. I could do this. I'm making my own money."
Mhm.
But to me, it's about just a connection of not being alone. Sure, you can have your friends, but it's always nice to have that loved one. Yeah, go
Well,
ahead,
that's
Dr. Sheila. Yeah, go ahead.
that's what I talk about, that it's not a battle of the sexes. What
Yeah,
we have to do is understand how do we become a family again? How do we want to be a family? And I think that if men and women try and understand each other and learn to communicate. And one of the things that men are going to have to learn is that they're going to have to meet the women because in the middle, because let's face it, women have been main caregivers. They take care of the elderly, they take care of the children, they have to take time off from work if the kids are sick. And now what's happening is that the women are getting to their careers where they cannot do that. They may be able to advance a little faster. Men are going to have to put their ego on hold if the women are earning more than them. If they may have to stay at home and take care of the children. If there are men that have to be stay-home dads, just like they were stay-home moms. So
right.
the roles are changing. And one thing I don't like is if women are losing the female identity. And that's something I have addressed in my books too, that you should not lose the gender identity because women are not learning how to sew. They're not learning how to cook. They're not learning how to be good caregivers. They're following in the male footsteps of the hookup
Culture.
generation.
Yeah, yeah,
People are not falling in love. They think that it's more of an uh, being attracted to somebody who's going to entertain them for a while. And women have to give up this idea that men have to provide everything for them. Even though I am almost 70 years old, when I was dating, I always paid my way. If we went out on a date, until unless it was a serious relationship or somebody said, okay, I'm going to take you out to dinner, that's
sure.
different. But if you went out as friends, you paid your way. A lot of women still think that the men have to, like the men say they have to take them out on a date, they have to pay for the meal, they have to pay for the entertainment. They may or may not get an evening out of it. The woman
Right.
may decide she just wants to go home, or like now, I've written about half night stands where, they'll hook up, have sex, and then, they go home
Yeah,
because
I heard
they
that
don't want
too.
to
Yeah.
get up in the morning and have to face the goodbye or not seeing you again or whatever. They'd rather be in their own bed, open up their laptops, read their emails, check whatever, and then go to work. And that is not conducive to having a long-term relationship. You have to learn to meet each other in the middle. Until that happens, it's going to be very difficult for people to, and I don't like the statistic either from JP Morgan. I hope that there will be a big difference in how men and women want to be in a relationship, and they will work together. And that's the whole idea, is working together. Because if the men continue to want to be dominant and want to continue to be the head of the household and not help the women out with the cooking and the cleaning and the caretaking of kids and that, then it's going to be very difficult for people to meet, because you're seeing this in even in Asian countries, China, India,
Hmm.
which are very, very patriarchal societies, and we are seeing the same issues all over the globe. It's not just an American issue.
Yeah, and because I look at, again, sometimes I get my information through YouTube and reading
Mhm.
articles because I love to read the articles about
Mhm.
what dating and all that.
Right.
And there was an article, I think it was by Evie magazine. I'm trying to remember where the headline says is it embarrassing to have a boyfriend now? And I'm like, whoa, where did
Whoa.
this come from?
I
Yeah, there is an article because I printed it out, and again, I want to talk about that in the future. But it's been covered by other podcasters
Mhm.
where women are saying, yeah, it's embarrassing to have a boyfriend, or or on their Instagram profile, you see they might be by themselves, and their boyfriend might be taking a picture. but you won't see a picture of the boyfriend in
Mm-hmm.
that picture with her. So, I'm hearing that. I'm hearing that some women are saying that if they date a man, they have to make just as much or more than them. So, some of these guys are not ready to make that money because they're young.
Right,
They're just getting on with life. And sometimes the
right,
guy don't hit that stride until
right.
35, 40, 45. A
Yeah,
woman can hit that stride financially and physically, what, 25, 30, 25, 20, 25, 30.
right.
So I just still in this day and age, I see a disconnect compared to when I was dating in the 1990s. We
Well,
court a woman. It's so different now.
well, the thing is, they're navigating a lot of different issues. With a lot of the adult children living in their parents' homes right now.
I heard that too. Yeah.
The streaming of shows, the constantly checking your phone, not paying attention to who you are with. All those factors do not help the couple to fall in love. So you don't go through the three phases of lust, attraction, and then commitment, because you're so busy doing, either thinking about your career advancement, or is there going to be any privacy in the home if you take the girl home.
Mm.
And so when you, again, this is pretty worldwide, and Netherlands ended up getting really worried that the young people are not having sex anymore. And in Japan, the men don't even know how to talk to women. They don't even know how to connect with a woman.
Because
And
everything is through text now, right?
well,
And yeah.
everything is through text, or they're so focused on their career moves,
Mhm.
or they're not, even, let's face it, even when people are together, if they're not listening to each other, if they're, listening to the dings, or even now everybody has Apple Watches. And so, the watch is going to go ding if there's something on your phone. So then you have to look at what, and so you're not paying attention to each other. And I think that's the main problem right now, is not connecting. And then, it's sad to say that when you're talking about mental health and relationships, that it's amazing when you're in love, people are not depressed. They're exhilarated,
Yeah.
they feel good, and you have all the good hormones coming out, and you don't pay attention to the red flags. You have the rose-colored glasses, and so you don't know whether you're going down the right path or not. Then what happens is, if the relationship breaks up, it all depends on exactly what you said. What is your own self-confidence? Are you going to be strong enough to navigate that breakup? Are you going to be strong enough to feel good about yourself, to put yourself out again?
Right.
And that's when we are seeing a lot more suicide. I hate to say that, but even in my own family, we've lost two young people. One was a
Mhm.
dentist and one was a computer guy,
Yeah.
both over loss of relationship, and killed themselves in their 30s. And this was mid 30s. And to me, that is just so horrifying. And that is why I started off saying, one, you have to have a relationship with yourself. You have to have
Right.
a good, strong relationship with your own family structure. Then you have to have a good, strong relationship with your friends. And then you will learn how to have a relationship with a significant other, that you work at not only making yourself feel good in the relationship, but making the other person feel good in the relationship, so that you will want to stay in the relationship. And that's the part that's missing right now, is people are not tolerant enough or paying enough attention to stay in the relationship and work through issues.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, Dr. Sheila, because I look at my situations where I'm a single man, but I have so many great friends
Right,
that I could just hang out with, call, or whatever. So I always had that.
right,
But I think a lot of guys are just isolating themselves
right,
because of fear of
right,
rejection, or
right,
fear of being filmed or talked about. Listen, it's going to happen. I don't think guys should have fear about that, because if the woman's not going to like it, they're going to talk about you regardless, whether it's online or behind your back.
right.
And I wish more guys would go out there and approach women and not be afraid. Because
But
go ahead, Dr. Sheila, go ahead.
there's a study that I read about and have written about in my book, that
Yeah.
it's men that actually put themselves out there. girls are not
Okay.
the ones that are approaching, but the mistake that the men make is that they are pursuing women that may be out of their league. And then that's when the rejection starts. So I think that,
So how
movies.
we narrow that gap
Yeah,
then to date within your
yeah,
sphere, so to speak?
you have to gauge yourself. You have to know yourself a little bit better to say, hey, is that an unattainable goal? And if it
Mhm.
is, then let's lower the expectations. Let's go with somebody who's not looking like a beauty queen.
Right.
Am I the most handsome guy in the room? Maybe not. Then I shouldn't be going after the beauty queen. There are lots of other women out there that are not putting themselves out. They may be more simple, they may be dressed more conservatively,
Yeah.
and they have a lot to offer. But if men are just going to go after those slinky dressed or looking really hot or feeling like that's going to be a trophy on their arm, then those are the women that are going to let you down. And
Right.
so,
And you're leaving the good girl behind. And vice
yeah,
versa, because I've seen that
right,
too, where
exactly. It's the same with the men.
yeah, they want to go out with the athlete or the sports guy,
That's
whatever,
right.
but there's a guy that
Right.
would be devoted and take care of her and all that.
That's right.
And it's just such a different era when it comes to dating now compared to the
Yes.
90s. And I understand. One thing that you hit on is just the social media. How mentally draining could that be if you're constantly on your phone, you get the ping, and then or even me, I could be at work or something. If I hear vibrate, I'm picking up my phone. I'm
Yeah.
like, what am I doing? And sometimes I'm watching TV and I'm just looking, I'm just scrolling. So I get in the bad habit of doing that. And I just think that with Instagram and TikTok is just taken away from a genuine connection, in my opinion.
Well, I just read a headline today that if you detox yourself from your social media
Mhm.
and all your, phones and laptops and everything else for 1 week, you're going to have a 25% decrease in depressive symptoms. And that's
Mm.
pretty amazing because it's true. You're always comparing, you're always looking for something. And you are absolutely right that if you don't connect with the person you're in a room with, whether you're talking to them or if you're on the phone. Like when I talk to my mother on the phone, I make it a special um, president that I am not scrolling the laptop at the same time. I'm not looking at the
Yeah.
phone at the same time. I'm focusing on talking to her. And I think that I get very upset with my significant other because when we're watching TV, he's doing exactly what you're saying. He's scrolling, he's writing on Facebook, he's reading. And, I look over and I go, are you not interested in the show? He says, I'm watching it. And I'm like, how can you be watching it when you're on your phone? And I talk a lot about parenting because I was a child psychiatrist,
Yeah.
and one of the things that I always tell adults and parents is that kids learn by watching, not by what you tell them to do. So
Mhm.
if the parents are sitting there and on their social media, on their phones, on their laptops, and then they're telling the kids, you need to put your phone down, or you need to go to your room, or you don't, you need to sit here and it's like how many of us complain about going into restaurants and you see either a couple or a whole family, all like that instead of sitting there and talking. And
Yeah.
the rules, and I'm so proud to hear that the schools are asking the kids to put their phones away now because I
I heard
cannot
that too. Yeah.
imagine how distracting that is. When I was running my office, one of the things I was really concerned about was the staff. If they were going to be on their phone, how productive were they going to be in listening to my patients, checking patients out, talking to the insurance companies? So, yeah, I mean, it interferes in every aspect of our lives.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Well, first of all, Dr. Sheila, I really appreciate you being on People on Dating. And before I let you go, talk more about your books.
Well, like I said, they're all available on Amazon, or you can go to my website, which is www.drshila, Shila, Patel.com. And if you just put on Amazon books by Dr. Sheila Patel, MD, all three will show up. Like I said, Us Unhinged, which is really all about relationships, understanding males and females, about males, why they're single, what they need to do, what you need to do in a marriage, because if you think that the other person's supposed to be all about you, it's not. So the first book is really about relationships. The second book is all about the United States issues, the social issues, and then again, with the COVID pandemic. And then the third book was all about U.S. fractured, which was all about the January 6th,
All
and
right.
again, things after COVID.
And tell us that website one more time.
www, all lowercase, drshilapatel.com. But Sheila is spelled Shila.
Yeah, and I'll definitely put that on the show notes. And before I let you go, one last word about mental health and relationships.
Basically, you've just got to remember that culture may influence you to think that you should be with somebody, but at the same time, biology is what you're going to be attracted to. And
Mhm.
the other thing is that I love a saying that says, time decides who you meet in life, but your heart decides as to who you want in your life. And your behavior will dictate who will stay in your life. I love that saying, and that's such a paramount thing for relationships and mental health and whether you'll be successful or not.
No, I definitely appreciate that. Well, again, Dr. Sheila, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be on People on Dating. I really appreciate
Well, thank you so much for inviting me, William.
it.
Have, thank you.
You too. Bye bye.
Okay, bye bye.